Lastly, what we do in our practice as part of the whole body approach is we just look at metabolic health, blood sugar, thyroid, energy, micronutrients, adrenals. So many people these days have adrenal dysfunction because of living in chronic stress for so long. Those are all things that affect how your hormones are metabolized, how your hormones are utilized. And so we would be amiss if we didn't look at those things also. Those things are really the hormone locksmith piece, and that's where we excel at Vitality Renewal. We are the hormone locksmiths. We can help you fix your locks, make your cells be able to respond to the hormones so that they actually have a chance of working. Hormones only work when they bind to their receptors, like a key and a lock. And the hormone is the key. The cell's ability to respond is the lock. And if you have beautifully forged keys and rusty locks, the door does not open. We have to look at the whole picture. If you have gut inflammation, you don't metabolize your estrogen very well. There is something called beta-glucuronidase, which is secreted by abnormal gut bacteria, which I call the rowdy crowd. Not enough to give you bloody diarrhea, but just enough to cause gut inflammation. And if you have gut inflammation and the rowdy crowd microbiome, they're going to be manufacturing this chemical called beta-glucuronidase, and that allows estrogen recirculation. So your body might be unable to excrete estrogen. And then you get symptoms of too much estrogen because you may have the right amount initially, but if you can't get rid of it, then it builds up over time. Toxic exposures are another huge thing because there's so many toxins out there that mimic estrogen. They have just the right key shape to act like estrogen on your cells. So we want to make sure that we know that the estrogen that your body is reacting to and responding to is estradiol and not mycotoxins and not recirculating hormones because of gut abnormalities. This is exactly why some women say that hormones didn't work for them. I would say that if hormones don't work for you, you've got rusty locks. Work with somebody that knows how to clean that up and get you as close to 100% as you can, and then potentially reconsider trying again, because hormones will not fix everything. If you have rusty locks, you can take all the hormones in the world, but you're not going to feel better because your cells can't respond to them. So now let's say that you're in your mid-60s and you're interested in hormones because you finally realize you don't have to be afraid of them. But a realistic question is, what benefit are you going to get starting 12 to 15 years into menopause? Honestly, we do know that the women who have the best outcomes are the ones who start hormone replacement therapy early in the menopause change, potentially even before they become truly menopausal. That's the women who get the most benefit out of it. But that doesn't mean the woman who's in her 60s will get no benefits. So let's talk about what we know and what we don't know, what makes physiologic sense. When I don't know the answer, what I do is I think to myself, well, with my knowledge of physiology, does that make sense with what I know today about how the body works? And as an aside, if you meet someone who thinks they have all the answers, run the other direction. I hope you can work with somebody who is not afraid to admit that they don't know all the answers, because nobody knows all the answers. If we were not willing to change our mind in medicine, we'd still be bleeding people who had a fever. And I don't think it's going to be that long before we start looking at this unrealistic fear of hormones, potentially in the same light that we now look at people who used to bleed people with a fever. That's a pretty bold statement, but it's 2026 right now. I'm going to be really interested to see what we're saying about hormones by 2030, 2033, 2036. I predict that we're going to look back on those 20 years and realize how wrong we were. Okay, starting hormone replacement therapy later. It's beneficial, but not as beneficial. If you already have heart disease, it's not going to prevent heart disease. If you already have some memory loss, it's going to slow it down, but it's not going to potentially reverse it completely alone. I believe that cognitive decline is reversible, and optimizing your hormones is a key component to that. But even more important is inflammation, brain inflammation. We do know that if you're struggling with intimacy issues because of the genitourinary symptoms, syndrome of menopause, vaginal atrophy, causing bladder infections, urgency, pain with sexual intercourse, hormone replacement therapy can definitely benefit that, and I believe it is 100% reversible. You may need more than an estradiol patch and progesterone. You will likely need topical estrogen down there in order to get the response. The tissues will thicken, the elasticity will improve, and then sexual function can be resumed. We definitely do a very thorough evaluation on all our patients before we start them on hormone replacement therapy. And this is especially important if you're not immediately in menopause. You've just had more life experiences, more accumulation of toxic load, more chance for problems to be here. And so we want to make sure that we are really cleaning up those rusty locks before we get you started on hormones. The hot flashes are definitely responsive. Bone health is 100% responsive. Genitourinary syndrome of menopause is 100% responsive. The brain health issue, again, like I said, if you've had issues, then it's better for prevention than it is at reversal, but it doesn't mean it's not worth a chance. You need to have the conversation. What about contraindications to hormone replacement therapy? I actually differ from NAMS on this. I think there's very few true contraindications, and I may have some that I use as a contraindication that NAMS doesn't use. So according to NAMS, the contraindications include unexplained vaginal bleeding. Totally agree. I would not do that. Liver disease. Well, what if you're not using oral estrogen? What if you're using transdermal? If you're using transdermal that doesn't lead to liver inflammation and the inflammatory mediators, why should that be a contraindication? I think they're wrong there. Estrogen receptor sensitive cancers, ever? And that's worth a conversation. But if they've been treated and they've been cancer free and they're struggling and they want to have the conversation about how this could help them feel better for longer, I'll have that conversation. I'm not going to make the decision for someone, but I'm not going to tell someone that their goals and their desires are not important. We have a very serious conversation if someone has a history of cancer that's estrogen receptor positive and they want hormone replacement. One of the things that we will do if it's estrogen receptor positive is consider testosterone therapy first, because there's a lot of data out there that testosterone therapy can lead to so many improvements that could be enough for the improved quality of life. But for the women who really are making an informed decision and want estrogen, I think they deserve the right to be heard. I also deserve the right to say no. So as long as you have the conversation, it's important that both the woman and the prescribing provider are comfortable. And so the woman has the right to make an informed decision. The provider also has a right to say whether they agree with it or not. But if the woman doesn't get the answer that she wants, she can go get another provider opinion. One of the things that when I said I might do something that's a little contraindication that NAMS doesn't use, is you got to be willing to follow up and you got to be willing to look at excretion and levels, because a lot of doctors just hand out hormones and they see you once a year for a pap smear and they're never monitoring hormone metabolism. They're never monitoring your levels. And then they're never evaluating you for rusty locks, the whole body picture, the whole person picture. Are you making sure that you're doing all the things to have the benefits of longevity medicine? The purpose of hormone replacement therapy is longevity medicine. Keep you healthy as long as possible. I am all for that. Hormones is part of it, but it's only part of it. I honestly don't want to be the prescribing provider for someone who only wants the hormone replacement therapy arm of longevity and wants to ignore diet, stress reduction, toxin reduction, optimizing micronutrients. If they're not interested in those things, I can't help them. Hormones is not going to make up for a toxic lifestyle. You have to look at the whole thing. So in our practice, that's a contraindication. It's a contraindication where we're not willing to prescribe it if you're not willing to go all in and look at everything. I hope this has been helpful for you. And if it has, and you want more information on this, please subscribe. Please forward this to a woman who needs to hear it. Maybe it's you, maybe it's a family member or a friend or a loved one. Bottom line is there's no black and white right answer. There's no algorithm that you can follow without having a detailed, honest conversation between provider and woman. And it needs to happen starting now. Have the conversation, get your questions answered. You're not a number. You're not an age. Age is just a number. Let's figure out what's right for you and then make a determination at that point. And then every year when we see people, and actually in our practice, we see them at 6-month intervals, we always have a conversation. What's right for you now may not be what was right for you 6 months ago. So let's always update it. And that's how you practice precision longevity medicine.